a journey with me into the depths of minds unknown, and I can tell you anything that you're ever gonna wanna know. Like, will you be rich or famous, or even live 1,000 years? So take the chance, ask me anything. All you gotta do is sell your soul. Don't believe me, take the chance. In your future you'll soon glance to the mystic world that's far beyond. And I will say, yeah, I'm your Mr. Gypsy Man. Say okay, yeah, and your wish is my command. Just sign on my scroll, my powers behold everything that you ever might need. There's no risk, take a chance, fine print is attached. The wildest dreams that you want will come true. Mr. Gypsy Man, Gypsy Man, Gypsy Man, yeah, I'm your Mr. Gypsy Man. All right. That is an original. And if you go on Spotify, you can hear the full band version. I mean, I probably wrote it in 2015, recorded it in 2016. Do you know who Bear Erickson is? Yeah, so it was with him, actually. I did a Kickstarter to raise $7,000 to record 6 original songs, because I had been really getting into writing original songs, and so I took the class at SBCC, the songwriting class, and in fact there was a song I started. I didn't even have a name for it, but I wrote this part on the guitar that went. It's kind of this nice little, relaxing tune, this finger-picking song. And anyway, so there were 2 girls in that class who basically collaborated with me, and they wrote, or I should say we wrote together, and we recorded, we recorded this song called, that we titled Lullaby, and we actually got to play with the piano player from the band Toto, and we played it for him, and he liked it, and so that's a big, a compliment and accomplishment to be able to say that the famous piano player from Toto says, "Yeah, I like your guys' song." All beginning with this just little guitar part that we started, and we got to record that, and then we played it at the end of the year in their again the SBCC. Music concert at the end of the year, so that was a lot of fun. Hi, my name is Dewey Roberts, and I'm a musician and a songwriter and a music teacher. I just love music. It's what I do. And one of my biggest things that I love to do, besides just making music, is sharing music. No matter what age that person is, whether they're little kids or adults that have been loving and maybe playing music their whole life. It's just something that all people can, relate with. So I got into music in a very interesting way. My grandfather bought a Hammond organ, an electric organ. And so my mother played that organ. And so basically she said, "You're going to play the organ." All right? And so she tried to teach me, and I did not want to play the organ. I did not. To me, organ was meant to be in church. And so I did not want to play this organ. And so, you know, she tried to make that happen, and she'd sit down and she'd take out her old books that she learned on. You know, some pages are still taped together, and they're old school, right? Wasn't songs I wanted to learn how to play, and eventually it became difficult to get me to sit down at the organ. So she goes, if you're not going to learn from me, I'm going to sign you up for a teacher, and you're not going to be able to say no to the teacher. So anyway, she signed me up for this summer camp that had a band class. And the teacher, there were a lot of piano players, and organ and piano are actually laid out the same way. So for this class, it was going to be keyboards, all right? And so he didn't have enough keyboards because there were quite a few kids that were signed up for piano. And so this teacher, he just chose me. He goes, hey, we don't have enough keyboards, but we're going to be getting more next week. Do you mind trying this instrument? And he hands me the bass guitar. And at the time, I didn't know what this was. It looked like a guitar, but I didn't really know anything about instruments, really, right? Except for the organ at home and seeing a piano keyboard. And so I remember going and I was so excited to discover this instrument by accident. And I love that story. Music found me. And so I will always say, I am happy my mom forced me to play the organ. At that time, when I was at the summer camp and I ran out and said, oh, I'm playing this, I don't exactly remember how I described it word for word, but I said an instrument that's like the guitar. She goes, I didn't sign you up for the guitar, you know, something like that. And she actually was not pleased. I was there to play the piano, or the keyboard. But I know, looking back on it now, and she's seen, you know, that whole path. I know she's happy now, looking back on it, that I discovered the bass guitar, which just bursted the door open to really discovering a big part of myself. So when I was playing the bass guitar in the beginning, like 7th, 8th grade, getting into it, one of the things that I did the most is I would plug my iPod, back when we used iPods. I plugged my iPod into a speaker and I'd plug my bass into its amp, and I would just play along with the songs. And there was no music, no sheet music. I just learn it by ear, and believe me, they were by far wrong notes. That was actually a great thing in the beginning because I didn't realize, but what was happening is ear training, which is something that you learn in high school, but I mean especially college. There are ear training classes. And so by just having, you know, this instrument that I had been playing for a couple years and turning on that iPod to songs that I loved, that's another thing. These were all songs on my iPod that I loved. So I was also finding my style, especially at the time. These weren't songs that were being handed out to me saying, you know, you're going to play this song. It was like, I want to play this song. And I'd play some notes and be like, that sounds good. And then you hit a wrong note and it's like, okay, I know it's not that note, right? And then I'd realize, okay, it's a higher note or it's a lower note or whatnot. So actually, of course, I wish that I would go back and tell myself, hey, you want to learn to read music. You do. You'll thank me, right? If I could go back and talk to myself. But at the same time, it's a huge plus that I had that basic, simple, kind of self-discovering ear training, I guess you could call it, in a fun way. I think that's a big thing. It was simple ear training in a fun, enjoyable way to songs that I loved, that I chose. There was no one specific day where I was like, oh, you know what, I'm going to start learning guitar. It was kind of just from discovering friends that, I'd say, oh, I play bass guitar. Oh, I play guitar. And then they'd let me try it. And it just kind of flowed into that direction. And I decided, well, I want to play guitar too. And the first 4 strings of the guitar work the same way as the bass. So, I was able to pick it up, and there was no one specific day where I decided I want to take guitar lessons. It just, just kind of flowed in that direction. I discovered the bass guitar around 6th grade, and around 7th grade, I was signed up for this kind of band. So they took kids that signed up, and they kind of asked, oh, what kind of music do you like? And they put kids together, and so they put me in a group with other kids who I remember we played quite a few Beatles songs, so we'll just use that as an example. They also liked that style of music, and so they'd put us together. We had a drummer, we had 2 guitar players, we had a bass player, and we had a keyboard player. And so what they would do is they'd take this band they made, and they didn't give individual lessons about guitar or about bass. They'd help the band play together, listening to each other and all staying in tempo and things like that. And I think that was such a great thing to learn how, because, it's one thing to learn how to play your instrument. It's another thing to learn how to play with other people. And they made it so fun. That was another thing, that they made playing music fun. You're not just sitting in a chair with some teacher going, okay, here's how you play the E major chord, all right, let's hear it. Okay, good job, one more time, let's hear it. Right? They were making it fun, and so that's I loved that. Now, one thing that, especially as I got into high school, starting with bass guitar, having a little bit of that piano/organ experience, I actually discovered saxophone the summer after the bass guitar. So that was around my 7th grade year, and I played saxophone in 8th grade and on into high school. I played bass and saxophone. And, I really just ate up music. And that's one thing, I know some people, many people, they'll find an instrument and they just get so good at it. I've had so many friends who I play with, like those guitar players I talked about, and they're just so good at guitar, right? They just get, they're incredible. And but my thing was I just wanted to learn how to make music on all these different instruments. I wanted to get good, and I'd practice, and that's what I do. So, for example, today, I play bass in all the songs that I write, and I play the guitar in the songs that I write, and I sing in what I write, and I play saxophone in what I write, and I love making the music on those instruments. Well, becoming a music teacher, there was no one day just becoming a teacher. Some local people knew that I played guitar, and so they just asked, would you be able to help my son? It just actually started more by people coming to me rather than me going out and saying, I'm a music teacher. And eventually I noticed, I like doing this, and I think I'm decent at it. And of course, since I first began, boy, I've become much more educated myself and better at working with people of all different ages. But there was no one day I felt like I'm going to become a music educator, a music teacher. It was an over time thing. You know, I started with one student who came to me. That's how it started. So one of the, as I've gotten more and more into being a teacher, well, I was very close, or I can't say I am very close with my high school music teacher. I hope she doesn't mind. Her name's Beverly Van Wingerden. And she is a fantastic musician. She is a fantastic music teacher, and she's a fantastic person. She always cared about the students. She cared more about us enjoying the music that she played more than she cared about, you know, whether we got first or second place in our you know, band competition at the end of the year. And of course she wanted us to do the best that we could, and I mean that's part of being a music teacher, but she cared more about us enjoying it as a group and that kind of, you know, connection as a band. And you know, she wasn't stressful about, well, you all better be practicing, you know, 5 hours a week, whatever. You know, she made it very enjoyable, and I really bonded with her as well. I mean, she bonded with really all of the students. And so we've kept in touch since then, and as I became more and more of a teacher, one of the things she told me is you just need to be one day ahead of what you're going to teach the students. She goes, you know, students don't always know. They think you know everything. But in reality, you just got to be one day ahead when it comes to it. If, say, trumpet's not my main instrument. I know the basics of it, right? And so if there's a part that I need to teach the trumpet players, I got to just make sure I know it the night before so that I can teach, you know, our trumpet player, Tommy, how to play that part. You gotta know it. Be one day ahead of the students. So I loved hearing, you know, the woman who was my fabulous high school music teacher say that. And it is a good, you know, it can be a very good way sometimes to think about being the educator. So I play baritone saxophone with the Santinez Wind Ensemble, and they're a fabulous group to play with. And I discovered the Valley Wind Ensemble actually through a family friend, and now someone who I consider a close friend. Her name's Donna, and her son, a friend of mine named Nick, they play in the band. And Donna plays clarinet. Nick, he's no longer in the band because he's moved, but he played percussion when he was in his senior year. And so I had always heard about it, but I am very much a by ear musician, and they're a real band. I mean, they hand you music and they go, we're going to play this song. You know, they hand it out, and you know, we read it through. The first time they're handed out to us, and I was always
that was always, you know, a little frightening to me. The sight reading with other musicians who are just fabulous musicians. But it was actually after COVID that I decided, you know, I'm just going to try it. And as long as they know that I am not a good sight reader, but I want to play the baritone saxophone. This was also as I was getting more interested in getting better at saxophone playing, specifically the baritone saxophone, the big one. And the band was actually quite happy to have me, even though I'm sure many of them knew I wasn't exactly the best sight reader in the world at all. But they were happy to have the baritone saxophone. They were also happy to have more musicians because they sadly lost quite a bit over COVID. So I felt welcomed, even, you know, not being the greatest necessarily musician in the band by far. Again, there's fabulous musicians in that group, but they were very welcoming. They were a joy to play with, and I'm so happy that I kind of sucked it up and just decided to join. When I pick up the guitar, you know, it's even if I play the same thing I played yesterday, it might and most likely sound even a little bit different. You can do so much with something simple. So let's take 2 chords. Here's the G chord. Here's the D chord. You can strum those chords. You can break those chords apart. There's something called power chords, which my rock lovers will know. And let's say you're feeling a little more rock and roll. Right? And so you can take just 2 chords and you put whatever you're feeling. So if I'm feeling relaxed, maybe I'll play you know, some nice relaxing, you know, because I'm feeling this way. Or let's say I'm excited and I'm just wanting to jam. Let's say, you know, let's say there's had a hard day, or somebody's made you angry. You get that kind of. You know, you're just like strumming those strings. It's definitely feeling a lot different than this, right? You're usually not frustrated playing these sorts of chords. Well, actually, that's not true. Sometimes if you don't want to feel that way anymore, maybe you do play these very, you know, kind kind of relaxing chords because you don't want to feel that frustration. So you can take, let me try to give an example here, right? Here's... Let's take that, and we're going to rock it up a little bit. Right? There's those same chords. You can just, there's so much emotion that goes into that, where you can take the same song and make it almost sound like a different song. You really can do that. Take the same song, and it's just the emotion that you put into it. So when I'm teaching classes, the most important thing to me is making sure that the students all feel comfortable in the classroom, both with me as well as with each other. And I actually think that that can be easier than with private students, because no matter whether these are kids or adults we're talking about, in a classroom setting, they see that, oh, they're not the only one who's having a little trouble with this, right? When they're in a private lesson, it's just them. And they see that, oh, I know how to play that chord. And they think, oh, it's hard for me, so maybe I'm not good at guitar. But in a classroom setting, they are seeing other people, other students around them who are at the same level they're at. They're having a hard time with, the D major chord, and the person next to them's having a problem with the G major chord. That's the hard one for them. And so the biggest thing is for them to get comfortable both with the teacher as well as with their fellow students. And that often does not take too long. One of the things that I do say a lot to my students, in its full honesty, is I let them know if they're having a hard time with something, they're not the only one. That I had a problem, potentially with what they are too, and I let them know this is how I discovered that what they're having a hard time with, This is how I discovered that I had a hard time with the same thing they're having a hard time with, that they're not the only one, that is okay, that they are having a struggle with, this part, this song, this chord, whatever it might be that they're working on, that it's not just them, and that that's okay, and that I know what it feels like. That's why I'm the teacher, because I know what it felt like. I was where they are currently, and I learned how to bring that forward, and now my goal is to help them do what I did and take that next step. That is one thing that students commonly, in the beginning, they view it very mathematically, that they're trying to play these, notes in particular. First note, second note, third note. And their goal is just to get from the first part of the song to the last part of the song, right? And if they can do that, if they can play those notes in that order, done. And that is, that's very important, of course, to be able to play those notes. But I always tell them the last thing before you can say you truly know the song is when you can put a little bit of feeling and emotion into that song. That they're not just notes. It's not just like a math equation, right? Where if you can play from this part to this part, you know the song. I kind of push it one more level that I think is very important when it comes to playing music, is putting that emotion into it. Another thing that I will do is when they're either learning a scale or they're learning their first song, some notes, I will add on some chords with them. So if they're learning Mary Had a Little Lamb, right? That's pretty simple, and especially for kids who, they're at that age where it's like, oh, that song's for babies, right? They don't, like Mary Had a Little Lamb, right? They don't want to play Mary Had a Little Lamb. They want to play those cool songs. Well, yeah, it's Mary Had a Little Lamb, and I teach Mary Had a Little Lamb to all my students, no matter what their age is, because it's 3 notes. So really, the goal, it's not so much about the song, it's being able to use 3 notes. So what I do with them is they play their notes. I tell them, you're going to be the lead instrument. And so what I'll do is I'll play some chords behind them so it sounds more like a song, right? And I tell them, you're the lead instrument. I'm going to be the rhythm instrument, so it sounds something like this. So they play their lead part, and then I put some chords behind it. And first of all, they're getting that feeling of it's not just me anymore. I'm making music, and I'm making music with somebody else, which you don't really know what that feels like until you do it. And that's, in my way of teaching, playing with my students is a big way that I try to show them what music can feel like, because playing with other people is a big way that you find, the emotion and the feeling and the fun in music. So basically what I do is, I'm teaching kids and adults how I wish, in 2 ways, how I wish somebody would have taught me the things that I didn't learn till 10 years later. Something simple like this, where I didn't realize how important picking up was. You start down and you see a lot of people picking down. I was never told, well, up is just as important, right? So I've learned these things, and I make sure to teach my students these things I wish I knew 10 years, 15 years ago when I was first beginning, right? So that's one of the big things. And then secondly, it's getting that student, no matter what age they are, no matter what style or what their goal is, to get them excited about learning music. That's the number one thing, is to be, if they don't like what they're doing, they're not going to, that student's not going to want to continue, because what's the fun of that? It can be the same thing with sports. If you don't like the game you're playing, you're not going to try, and you're not going to want to come to practice, right? So I always try to make music fun, both, in the physical way of playing, making sure that they're not feeling bad about themselves, and finding music that they want to play. Because if they like the instrument, but their teacher's teaching them music that they don't like, it's not going to be fun. And it's really sad to think that does happen. When, let's say I did like playing the bass guitar in the beginning, but then I got a teacher and they wanted to teach me classical music, I might have dropped the bass guitar. But I was playing the music that I liked. I had that fabulous teacher who, as I said earlier, in that band setting, right? Playing Beatles music with, really, it was a great band, great kids, great people that I was playing with. So more than anything, it's just finding your way to enjoy making music. That's the most important thing, to find your way of enjoying learning and playing music. So stage fright. There's not always a stage when it comes to stage fright. So I play in different kinds of music for different kinds of events. When I'm playing at places like bars, wineries, restaurants, public events, people are there to have fun. That's a lot of fun. People are usually just having a good time. I'm going off of the the audience, the people there. They're going off of me. And that usually doesn't have much stage fright. And this has been an overtime thing, realizing that, I've done X amount of live music. I don't even know how much, but even when I make mistakes and people come after and they tell me they like it, and that makes me feel good. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess, bit by bit, you learn this is what people like. This is what, maybe what people like more than this. This is what gets compliments, yada, yada. You learn what people like. The most stage fright that I get is probably for things that are like weddings, where they're really special. And, I want that to be special for somebody. I would not want to hit a wrong note as somebody's walking down the aisle, That's something that's a moment they'll always remember. And so my goal is to make it extra special, right? That's my goal. When you're playing music for, like I said, at a winery or a public event, that's one thing. They're off doing their thing, they're having fun, the music's setting the mood, that's great. Again, somebody's special day, it's like an honor when somebody has me play at their wedding or some sort of a special event. And so there is a little bit of stage fright that comes with that. That's probably where the most stage fright of mine comes in, is when I want it to be the best that I can be for them. Music theory, that is such an interesting idea to think about. And I'm always working on it. It's such a great thing to know. It helps when you're writing music. It helps when you're soloing. It helps so much. But when I'm playing live, music theory actually, it's almost, I subconsciously choose how much I feel the need to use it. Maybe sometimes it's just coming more naturally. I'm remembering chord progressions, or sometimes maybe I'm just feeling the music a little more. Maybe the music theory is just a little more unneeded that day. Maybe it's not coming as easily that day. So the music theory is kind of like the helpful blueprints for those chord progressions. So it's not really an all or nothing type thing. To me, music theory is a tool, and you choose how much of that tool you want to use or you need to use, right? So it's such a helpful tool to have. And some people use that tool solely. That's what they go off of, right? They're building based off of those blueprints solely. Some people don't need blueprints. They're just going to make whatever comes, right? And so I feel like I do this. It just kind of depends. It depends on the style that I'm playing, and it depends really just day by day on how much I'm feeling. Maybe I'm feeling more complicated music. I'm just feeling that, and so because I'm feeling more complicated music, I'm going to need that bit of music theory, because I'm feeling it that way. And complicated music doesn't necessarily mean it's better music. So if people are enjoying some, we'll just say, a little more simple blues, hey, my head can relax, we'll focus more on putting the feeling into it than the music theory. So there's no, I honestly, I think this is the best way I can describe it. There's not one set platform, we'll say, of playing and how much music theory needs to be used. For myself, all musicians are different. That's me.